G'day, legends, and welcome to the Celtic Down Under podcast. I'm your host, Jared, and joining me tonight, it's the return of Liam. He's been away for a few weeks, so welcome back, mate. How you been,
Thanks.
and what you been up to?
Aye, well, you might notice the background behind me is a wee bit different. My lovely wife and I have been getting busy moving into our new house, and finally got internet up and running yesterday. So here we are. Yeah, it's good to be in a nice new house because the last one I was in, it was cheap, but it was very, very old, and this is a new build, so it feels good.
Happy for you, mate. And I'm gonna have to on my soundboard download train lines, so just noises, just like toot toot or some Thomas the Tank Engine noises or something. So randomly, when you're talking on the podcast in the future, can hit them for continuity's sake.
Aye, well, I mean, I'm right next to a main road, so if you're lucky, you might hear the odd bus crashing, but we'll leave that.
Yeah, fair enough. So yeah, just thanks everyone for tuning into the Celtic Down Under podcast again. Hope you've enjoyed all the shows on the channel this week. We had the weekend review, which was the deep dive into the 2-0 win against Ross County, hosted by Sean. On Tuesday, we had the Tuesday crew hosted by Stephen. They just did a nice bit of a deep dive into a few topics, looked into favorite, Glasgow derby / Old Firm if it's before 2012 games. So yeah, check that out on our YouTube channel and on our podcast feed. If you like the audio version, you can find both of them there. If you haven't done so, you're watching on YouTube or you're on the listening to the audio version on podcast, hit subscribe to the channel. On YouTube, hit the notification bell so when we go live Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, you get to watch the shows. Because when you do that, you get to see Liam's lovely face.
Such as it is.
That's the selling point, Liam. That's the selling point.
Yeah.
But we'll crack on. So, as I just touched on, there's a deep dive done on Monday for the weekend review, boys, for the Celtic 2 Ross County 0. So we'll just do a quick little overview, maybe a 5-10 minute chat on that game. So yeah, I had the stats up on my phone and then I just dropped it there. So we had from the stats perspective for me, I'm looking at it going 28 shots, only 9 on target, 75% possession. We had 416 more passes than them, pass accuracy 83% to 55%. The only yellow card for the game was to their gaffer, the Malky Mackay. We had 9 corners, one of the strangest penalties I've ever seen, and we've seen some doozies this season. So I want to get your take on the game overall, Liam. What was your thoughts on it? And we'll get into the goals off the back of that.
Yeah, a few things. First of all, I just think that, as we get to this point of the season where we are hopefully just half a dozen games or so away from winning the league, you're going to get games like this where it's a bit sluggish, it's a bit turgid, but you just get the heads down and get the result. And at the end of the day, there was a lot of bluster coming out of the other side of Glasgow on Saturday about how their team was finally coming together and we were going to struggle away to Ross County. And at the end of the day, they've not even made up a goal on us. So I would call that a good weekend's work.
Yep, I'd have to agree with you, Liam. We've got a comment here from Mr. Freeland. Poor game, but really it could have been 4 or 5 on another day.
Aye,
exactly. It could have been 4 or 5 in that game, in my opinion. Like, we were wasteful. Like, there was, second half in particular, I think it was, there was a break down the left, ball comes into Kyogo and he absolutely shanked it. I thought goalkeeper must have saved it. There was ones where we hit the crossbar and we hit the post a couple of times. We were just wasteful. So, yeah, we knew Ross County would sit back on their little small pitch. That's what they do. But, yeah, it was could have been a lot closer. I'm sorry, a lot worse than it actually was. It was closer than it was meant to be.
Yeah, it was one of those games where I get the feeling that if it was a last day of the season and we had to score 7 to win the league, we could have done it. It's just one of them. I think that we were very much in control, and only 2-0 doesn't really tell the full story of the level of dominance that we had.
I thought the funniest thing in the level of dominance talking about that was Ange missed the first goal. He was already in the locker room waiting to do his halftime talk. So hearing that after the match, I found that quite amusing. I'm like, and then I was thinking back to when Ange was managing over here in the A League, and yeah, he'd always, as soon as the board went up, he wouldn't hang around. He'd just be down the tunnel. So it doesn't surprise me at all.
Well, he's not the only one. I had no internet here on Sunday, so I missed both the goals. Managed to catch up on the computer at work the next day, thankfully. But I didn't see the game live. Only saw the highlights, I'm afraid. But as I say, from what I saw, looked like a commanding performance where, not that spectacular, but you get the job done. And just to touch on the goals, the penalty. Now, a lot of back and forth this week. Was it a penalty? Was it not a penalty? But my view is, if you look at the penalty that was given against Bernabei earlier in the season, and then you look at the one we got at the weekend, it's like, well, they're either both penalties or neither of them are. Personally, I wouldn't have given either of them if I were the referee. But if the Bernabei one was given and you're going to apply the rules evenly, then that one at the weekend should have been given as well. So fair's fair.
Yep, agree with you on that, Liam. For me, we've seen worse given. Honestly, if you went back 12 months before VAR was even in Scotland, that wouldn't have been given a penalty. Like, I wasn't even looking for a handball when they first went to the thing. And then, the ref's running over and he's like, they go, oh, he's looking for a handball. And I'm like, what are you talking about? That was my thought process. I actually watched the game back again today while working just to, figure it out. But I'm like, it doesn't really make sense to me. I'm like, nah, it's not a handball. I was looking for a penalty from the foul outside the box that carried in with Kyogo getting absolutely battered every time. So every time he came forward, was it Yaka, however you say his name, their centre back was just clattering him hip and shoulder. To use an Australian rules football term, you're putting the old hip and shoulder into him every time he's trying to make a run outside of the box and fouling him.
Aye. Ironically, I think the hip and shoulder were the only parts of the body he didn't take somebody out with during the game, but there you go. No, I think that's it exactly. He was just trying to, noise us up physically, but ultimately it proved completely ineffective. So, I wish these teams would just realise that the best way to get a result, or to have any hope of getting a result against Celtic or indeed Rangers, is to go out and have a go. The one team that beat us this season, St Mirren, they did it by having a go at us. They came out and attacked us, and they got ultimately on the day what they deserved because we did not perform well that day. And likewise, when you look at the games where Rangers have dropped points, it's because the other teams have shown them no fear. And I think that is something that all of Scottish football needs to learn, is that your fans are not going to be happy if you sit there and just shut up shop for 90 minutes and you come away saying, oh, well, we only got beat 2-0, other teams will get beat 7 or 8-0. It's like, yeah, but you're paying money to watch a game of football. You're paying money to be entertained, not to sit there and watch a reenactment of the Alamo on a football pitch,
Their fans are paying for a season book for 19 home games over the season. And if you're going to take 4 of them, so 2 against us, 2 against Sevco out of the picture, we're just going to sit up and shut up shop. Realistically, they're paying for 15 games? It's not good value for money, first of all. Second of all, the teams we've struggled with the most that have made it more of a challenge for us have come and played against us. Like, as you said, like St Mirren, away at their place, they come out and play. They don't just sit back. They'll counter when they can, then they'll press us when they can, and then they'll drop back. So they mix it up. So the difference is, are we all going to play old Craig Levine's type, anti-football, or are we going to have teams come and actually try and play against us? Now, going into the weekend, I'm expecting them to try and come and play against us, and I'm looking forward to that scenario. But we'll discuss that later on in the podcast. But I want to touch on a couple other things about the game, and then we'll just leave it there. So,
sure.
Jota on penalty duties. I've seen people on Twitter and that saying never let him take a pen again. What was so bad about it? My opinion, straight down the guts. I didn't have a problem with it.
I mean, no, at the end of the day, if a penalty goes in the net, it's a good penalty, regardless, right? But I did say last night on Axom, and I'm going to double down on it today. I hope Aaron Moy is back at the weekend and taking the penalties, because Jota's taken two, scored two, but the way he takes them just doesn't fill me with confidence.
You know what he reminds me of taking penalties? He reminds me of a David Beckham stepping up to take a penalties. You're not sure if he's going to go for power or if he's going to go for like style and and just try and be a bit flashy. Like when he used to take pens back in the day for England or whatever. Like I had friends growing up that were like their parents were born in England, so they were massive England fans, and I'd give them both barrels because I'm an Aussie of Irish and Scottish descent. We don't really like them very much, so we'd
Yeah.
but they were always worried about him taking the penalty because, is he going to try and be flashy and chip the keeper here? Is he going to just blast it for power, try and place it in the top corner, just be fancy, whatever? And when Jota comes up, you kind of look at it and it's the same thing. But got a couple of comments we'll throw in here about him. Mr. Freeland, surely Kelmac can take a pen. Michael Ross, great penalty he scored. And Andrew Galea, it's all about confidence with penalties.
I mean, those are all valid points.
Liam, there's a comment here for you as well. Sorry, from Mickey, where you said you hope Moy's back for the weekend.
Yeah.
Response is, haha, you've got to get a pen against them in the first, lads.
Valid point. Valid point.
What was you going to say?
No, I was just going to say that to go back to what you were saying about David Beckham, it's amazing. There's been a few cases of that where you've got players who can clearly strike a tremendous shot or have great free kick skills. I mean, Beckham was, probably the best in the world in his day when it just came to free kicks from about between 20 and 25 yards from goal. But his penalties were very kind of erratic. And you think, if anything, if you're a free kick specialist, you think penalties would be easier because it's basically a free kick but closer to the goal. But it doesn't work that way. I've seen it with a lot of players, great free kick takers but terrible penalty takers.
You see it, Liam, just on that though, to go on a little tangent, you see it in the NBA and like the basketball all the time. You can have these guys who are really good 3-point shooters, but then, and that's in the flow of the game moving, so everyone's moving around, but you get them at the free throw line where the whole game stops and all eyes are on them, and they're just terrible. So it happens not just in football, but it happens in basketball. It happens, I'm sure in the AFL, you can get guys right in front and they shank having a shot trying to kick a goal. It happens in all sorts of sports.
Yeah, I mean, you see it in rugby as well. Guys that can kick a penalty from a very acute angle, but then when they try and convert a try straight in front of the post, they might miss it. It's I think it tells you that these kind of sort of penalty kicks or whatever they are in their respective sports, it's about character and it's about I think it's about, what would be the right word? It's about guts rather than skill, because no doubt David Beckham was a superb striker of a ball, but penalties were not his forte. And I think that it's the same with somebody like Jota. No questioning his ability. Tremendous player. Obviously got a great shot on him. Came within millimetres of scoring a beauty at the weekend. But penalties, not quite his strong point. Whereas Aaron Moy, not as much of a flair player as Jota, but more of a level head, which I think is maybe more important when you're taking penalties.
Yep, it's all about the way the person proceeds with it and handles it mentally. And you don't have to be a flashy player. Just give me someone with the moxie who's going to step up in front of 60,000 fans on the weekend, or 50-something thousand over at Ibrox later in the season, and have a crack. Like as was said earlier, you've got to get a penalty against them first, but I'm just talking in general. Stepping up with that many eyes on you, the game stops and it's slowed down. Get someone with the mindset that can do it, and those players are definitely worth their wages and then some. Now, the second goal. What a thunder bastard. It's the nicest way to sum it up. Absolute thunder bastard from Bernabei. Get in.
Yeah.
Happy with that. It's good to see him get his first goal for the club. So, yeah. I was impressed with what I saw from him up until that point, and then to put that in, just rounded off a nice little cameo for him.
Yeah. Put it this way. If Greg Taylor is not ready for the weekend, and indications are that he will be, but if he's not, I have no qualms about pitching Bernabei in. He seems to have grown a lot in the last few months. Although he's only made a couple of appearances, he has looked assured. And that goal at the weekend was nothing more than he deserved for his consistency when he has played recently. So yeah, he's going in the right trajectory to become an established player in the squad, and that is a good thing because we do only really have him and Taylor as left back coverage at the moment. Hatate can do it, but I think he's definitely better utilised in the midfield. So yeah, I'm very happy with the way Bernabei performed at the weekend, and I hope this is the kind of the spark that kicks him on to even greater things in the weeks and months ahead.
I think for Bernabei, it's probably two things. It's the having been at the club a bit longer, getting into the swing of things. His English is improving, and like all that thing where he's starting to feel more at home in that club environment. First of all, and then the second thing is he's now a dad. Like that'll mature you. Like now he's got his kid there, he's got his family, all of that. So if you look at it, it's like that's going to make him grow up and make him mature. So it's good to see that he's making these things, and that goal and that performance is just the confidence he needs. As you said, if Taylor doesn't make it this weekend, then I'm not in the slightest bit worried if Bernabei plays the game against the Huns on Saturday.
Yeah.
But one last thing on the game here. Mickey Monahan is saying, what about O's performance? He's shaping up well. I'm loving seeing him getting out there, and he's got the range of movement. He's got he's getting in the right positions. He's not afraid to get physical and just throw people around and throw his body around. It's great to see. What's your thoughts, Liam?
Yeah, I mean, he is exactly what I kind of hoped and predicted that he would be when we signed him, is that he is just an incremental upgrade on Giakoumakis. He has all of Giakoumakis' qualities, but I think he has them to a higher level. He's more of a dominating presence. He gets in and about it a bit more. He is very good in the air. He's very good with holding the ball up. He likes a shot. He likes to take players on. He's got that eye for goal. But also, I think it's good from just a kind of a more general football perspective that, I've long been an advocate of Asian football, even before Celtic started signing all of Japan. But I think it's great to see a player like O doing so well, but also doing so well and going against all the established stereotypes of what people think an Asian player should be. When people think of Asian footballers, they tend to think of somebody like Kyogo, right? Skillful, quick, fit, but a bit lightweight and maybe a bit injury prone if he gets hit too hard in the tackle. Physically, maybe not quite up to it. But O is the complete opposite. He is, he's. I haven't seen a Celtic striker who can, knock defenders about like that for a long time. I mean, possibly even going back to John Hurtston and Chris Sutton is the last time I remember seeing a striker who took on, physically took on centre backs of other teams with that level of authority.
That's where I was thinking as well. Like that's how far back we'd have to go on that as well, Liam. But speaking about the physicality of O, right, and I'm just going to touch on it quickly as well. Kobayashi and Owada, those two coming in, especially Owada on the weekend. Like, I didn't realize he was that big. Like, you see him playing in the midfield, but then you see him when there's a corners and that, and he's next to Starfelt and he's next to Carter Vickers, and you're like, oh, okay, he's a legit 6-footer. Good to see. And then you got Kobayashi's like 6'2" or something like that. So as you're saying, most people think the Japanese guys are going to be those small, injury-prone, fit guys like your Kyogo, like your Itaguchi, like your Hatate. But then when you look at those three in particular we're just talking about, in O, Owada, and Kobayashi to a lesser extent, it's good to see that, footballers come in all different shapes and sizes, and they can, they just come in and do the job. So I'm happy with that. So I'll bring up a comment here. from Patrick McLaughlin. I've done a project in college about Asian sportsmen and how they're perceived. At the time, there wasn't many Asian players in Europe. It's changed a lot in the last decade in particular, so it's good to see. But why I wanted to touch on O, Liam, because about how his performance, as well as it ties in perfectly to the next topic that we wanted to discuss, right, which was former Celtic transfer target Cho Gu-sung is apparently upset that his hoops near miss as the South Korean Pal O makes such a make the most of his great opportunity at Celtic. That was what was reported during the week, right?
Yeah.
Leading up to the game where O played well on the weekend. So my question to you is, do you think Celtic will be back in to sign Cho in the summer transfer window?
Possibly, but maybe not on as favourable terms as he would have got in January. I think he's kind of shown his hand a wee bit there, and his agent is probably saying to him, "What the hell are you doing? You probably just knocked £1 million off your transfer value." Cho needs to be careful. I don't know if he'll end up at Celtic, but he needs to make the move to Europe in the summer, because he had a great World Cup. He should have struck while the iron was hot and made the move to Celtic right after the World Cup. That would have given him maximum exposure. He would have probably, on the back of the World Cup, he might have actually got more game time than O does, because I would argue he was much more of an established international. But he missed the boat, and he missed the boat by all accounts because he himself was being wishy-washy about it. And at the end of the day, you can't do that in professional football. You get the chance to go to a big club, you take it. And he might have, I hope he'll end up at Celtic, but I think he might have blown his chance.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying there, Liam. For me, he should have struck when the iron was hot. He needs his move into Europe. And a club like Celtic, we had Kyogo. Giakoumakis was moving on. He would have been coming in to be Giakoumakis' replacement, and then O would have been coming in as the third striker to develop over the next year or two. Now we're looking at it with how well O's come in and how big and dominant he is. Have those ships passed in the night with Cho coming to Celtic? More than likely. But if Cho does come in as a 6'2" striker with that range of movement and everything as well, then we'd have three quality strikers that all know how to play Ange's way. They all got the movement. They've got the skill about them. A couple of guys are a bit bigger and everything like that. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it looks. But I think Michael Ross has got the best summary here. He's looking on in envy at O, and that's the easiest way I look at it.
Yeah, that's it, exactly.
There's
nothing worse than looking at a player and thinking that could or should have been me,
So I got a couple of comments here. So Patrick McLaughlin, I've seen the Japanese lad Machino scored 4 the other day in the J League. You know who he's referring to, Liam?
Yep, decent prospect, but probably not what Celtic are looking for at the moment. I think he's a bit too similar to Kyogo, to be honest. But watch this space.
We need something a bit more, let's just say, for in Europe. It's more what I reckon we need. So, yeah, but then Eamon's put on here, hopefully we can be seen by Asian star players as a good move. Well, it's working well so far. Yeah. Already are. It's only one that hasn't worked for, so...
Yeah, at the end of the day, Gucci was phenomenally unlucky with injuries. You've got to say that, as he was when he went to Leeds before, and as he is now at Fukuoka. The poor guy just cannot get he can get a break, just unfortunately the breaks he gets are usually in his feet. But no, it's really it's a shame for him, because there's definitely a player in there, but I don't think we'll ever see it at Celtic, unfortunately.
Yep. All right, I'm going to bring up a comment here from Michael Ross before we go to the next topic. Hey guys, why a change in time? Daylight savings ended over here, and in the UK, they've gone onto it. So that's why it's gone from an 11-hour difference now from where I am to a 9-hour difference. So that's why there's been changes in times in the last couple of weeks. So this will be our normal time on a Wednesday going forward. So just thought I'd explain that to you. Before we crack on to the next topic, with the derby on Saturday, let us know in the comments where you're going to be watching the game. Are you going to be watching it at Celtic Park? Are you going to be watching it in your CSC? Are you going to be watching it in the My Couch CSC in your lounge room? Let us know where you're going to be watching it. We'll bring some of them up later on in the podcast on the screen as well. Now, Liam, here we go. I had this on our run sheet, right? And it starts with this: if Liam is on the podcast. That's what
Right.
that's
Okay.
what I credited it as.
All right.
So we need our man in Japan for his view on this, right?
Right.
So there was a story that came out prior to the game on the weekend where it was mentioned by Ange that hang on, I'm trying to get my wording right here. He tried to sign Brighton star Kaoru, I probably butchered that, Mitoma.
Mitoma.
Now the quote here, it goes, the Celtic boss said, I tried to get him here, but he was already almost done for him to go to Brighton. Him and Kyogo were the first two players I tried to bring across. Mitoma would have been a good signing, but unfortunately for us, Brighton also have a very good scouting network. They managed to pick him up, and there was never any doubt in my mind that he was one who was going to be a top player. He's done really well down there, which hasn't surprised me. So, off the back of that, Mitoma came through the university system, similar to what Hatate did at the same club, right? They both came through together, and he was a little older too. So it's similar to the Hatate move. Now, first of all, would Mitoma have made the same impact that Kyogo made when he first arrived at the club? And second of all, who else in Japan should we look out for?
Right. To answer the Mitoma question, yes, he is probably the best prospect to come out of Japan in the last couple of years. Japanese Player of the Year last year, having a great season with the greatest of respect, a pretty mediocre team in England. It takes a good player to shine in the English Premier League, but it takes an exceptional player to shine with a team that are not necessarily going to be winning every week. It's a lot harder to be a star at a club like Brighton than it is at a club like Man City or Liverpool. So yeah, he has done very, very well. We definitely were unlucky not to get him, because I actually remember reading just after we signed Kyogo, I remember reading that he was a possibility, and I was like, get it done, Celtic, but unfortunately it never happened. Clearly Ange was trying, and it speaks a lot for Ange as well that he's willing to come out and say, there's one that got away, but he's clearly a great player and I wish him well. Dare I say, managers at other clubs historically have traditionally said, oh, well, we didn't want him anyway, when a player has knocked them back and gone elsewhere.
Even Neil Lennon did that for us. Let's not forget that.
No, I mean, it's a common, how can we put it? It's a common character flaw in a football manager's ego quite often to dismiss a player who turns you down. And he is, Mitoma's a fantastic player. Now, in terms of what should we be looking at next, it's been still a bit early in the J League season to really say, this guy's the next Kyogo or this guy's the next whatever. But there isn't really any one player I would pick out at the moment, because I think that it's, as I say, we're only, a month into the season here, and it's still kind of back and forth as to what teams are going to be the serious title contenders. I do think that there are teams to watch and watch the way they play, because they play a very Ange style of football. So whatever country you're watching this from, if you do pick up the J League at all, I believe that if you're outside Japan, you can get it on the J League YouTube channel sometimes, some matches. I would say look out for Kawasaki Frontale. Look out for Vissel Kobe. Obviously, they're the clubs that we signed Hatate and Kyogo from, respectively. But these are clubs that traditionally have always produced very good young Japanese talent. Yokohama Marinos as well, to be fair. But they also blend it with, they bring in good players internationally as well. Like Kawasaki Frontale historically had a link with, I think it was Grêmio in Brazil. So a lot of your Brazilian Japanese players historically, not so much these days, but back in the early 2000s, there was about half a dozen Brazilian Japanese who came to Japan, and after being here for 5 years, they nationalised and ended up playing for the national team. And it was most of them were through Kawasaki in their relationship with Grêmio. They actually wear the same colour strips as Grêmio. It's a historic link. I don't know the full ins and outs of it, but that's basically where they come from. And as I said, Vissel Kobe, they have the likes of Iniesta playing alongside their young Japanese talent, and that is only going to, when we sign Kyogo and Iniesta turns around and says he's the man, I'm like, that's all the endorsement I need.
That's all I needed to hear.
Yeah, but yeah, it's really good, and to give them their due, I really do think that as much as I don't like them as a club, Urawa Reds are another team that do produce some good players. Unfortunately, it's largely motivated by the fact that their fans are not happy whenever they sign anyone who isn't Japanese, but we won't go into that. But yeah, these are all clubs to look at. And over the coming months, I am going to try and now that I'm fully in my new house, my internet up and whatever, I am going to try and watch some more games, and I do hope to be able to give us kind of a semi-regular scouting reports of players that I think have got potential.
We'll have to start a little segment on the pod here, Liam, for you, like once a month or something. Liam's J-League Scouting Corner or something. We'll come up with a better name than that, but just give you like a video that we just chuck on the screen and we can all go for a drinks break, whatever, or you're doing your thing.
Aye. I mean, I definitely think there's, apart from anything else, I think more people should watch the J-League. It is an entertaining league, and it's a dynamic league. And it's good because it's one of the few top flight leagues in the world where still every year you've got about 7 or 8 teams that have realistically got a chance of winning the league.
Yeah, it's actually pretty good. Like, I've got that as part of, with my phone plan, I get the J-League coverage on there. So, like, I'll just be sitting in behind here someday watching TV going, yeah, there's nothing really on Netflix or on TV I want to watch. Oh, yeah, it's a J-League game kicking off in 10 minutes. Let's chuck it on and just sit there and watch it. Like, last one I watched was some Yamaga versus someone. I can't remember who it was, but yeah, wasn't a great game, but it was better than the standard you get over here in the A-League. So
Although saying that, my dad's become quite a big fan of the A-League because that's on TV in Scotland early Saturday and Sunday mornings their time. So he's a bit of an insomniac sometimes. So he does like text me at like 6 a.m. his time saying I'm watching this A-League game just now, So there is, the A-League's maybe a wee bit better than you might give it credit as well, I think.
Well, speaking of the A-League, that's why Shane's not here tonight on the pod. He's so basically, I don't know who remembers, there was a Melbourne derby a little while ago at Melbourne City's home game. The Melbourne Victory fans, there was all sorts of protests about the grand final being sold to Sydney and all this sort of stuff. So shit kicked off with the fans, invaded the pitch in the 20th minute. The Melbourne City goalkeeper got a bucket of sand smashed into his head. And Shane's at that game tonight, so because they've restarted it from the 20th minute onwards and everything. So if any sand buckets get thrown at anyone, I blame you, Shane. I told you, don't let anyone do it from the Victory fans. So, yeah, that's why he's not here. But, yeah, the J-League, much better overall quality to the A-League. But the scary thing with the A-League at the moment is the teams like in second or third last are currently, 6 points off making the top 6, which is getting into finals. So it's pretty close competition. So there we go. We'll leave that topic there. Now, next topic that I wanted to discuss here is Ange has rubbished the claims that Lil Abada is 90% certain to leave Celtic in the summer. He said, Lil's very happy here and there's nothing that's shown me he wants to go anywhere. He just wants to be the best he can be. He's working hard to do that and he's been fantastic since he joined us. Sometimes other people like to speak for others, but I prefer to speak to the person themselves and get a first-hand information. At the moment, Lil's really happy here. Players have their futures in their own hands. It's about what they want to do. Some of them are at different stages of their lives and have different ambitions. I've got no problem with that. It's not about being ruthless or harsh with them. It's about understanding their needs and what they want to do. That's fine. We move on and they move on to better things. That's how I treat every case. The reason I brought that up is because a few weeks back, when all the rumors were going on, the story that Abada was leaving, all that stuff through the media, his agent, the from president of his old club's coming out, spruiking him for a deal. They've got to sell on. So of course he's going to be saying that because he wants to get interested in him to make some money off him, right?
Yeah.
So I'm looking at that saying I don't see our CEO or whatever out there in the market telling everyone that Kieran Tierney needs to be sold and Jeremy Frimpong needs to be sold because we've got sell-on fees and that they're going to move. So it's just stupid reporting, but hearing that from Ange, that puts the kibosh on it. We're not going to worry about it anymore. And yeah, Abada is here to continue tormenting Borna Barisic. Happy days.
Yeah, remind me again, Jared, who do we play on Saturday?
Hey, who is it again? Is it Old Firm FC? I think that's who it
Yeah,
is.
because it's funny how these kind of stories always seem to emerge or even resurface long after they've been buried, a bit like the football club, whenever we play that mob, isn't it?
Well, that's why the podcast name is Derby Bingo, because on Axom on I think it was Monday, Colin on there rattled off a bunch of things that happen every single game, every single week in the lead up to a derby. There's all these different stories that always pop up like clockwork. And I took that and I've turned it into an actual bingo card, which we'll put on the screen later on, and we'll go through that when we're previewing the derby. But yeah, it's funny how you always get these stories in the week or two leading up to the derby. Always.
Yep.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
quite amusing to me.
Has a Celtic player been found drunk or kicked out of a nightclub yet? Because whether it's happened or not, the Daily Record will probably tell us it has by Friday.
The Daily Ranger. There we go. Now Patrick has gone. The media's in a huff because Ange has stayed, so they'll start on our players. And it's either one way or the other. It's either the manager's leaving or about 4 players are leaving. So yeah, we'll just see how it is.
The thing is, but with the journalists, though, Ange has got them so much in his back pocket. He's just, they're, they don't know how to handle him at all, and it's great to see. Gordon Strachan had a wee bit of that when he was Celtic manager, but this is the first time in a long time that we've had a manager who has really came out and just basically told the press to do one whenever they try and stir up something,
The funny thing is, I remember you and me were talking about this when Ange was linked to the club. And like you've seen it firsthand, him in Japan. I've seen him firsthand over here. We know how it is. And we got a comment here from Patrick. The journalists up here hate him. Of course they do, because he's showing how incompetent they are at their jobs. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see here. Now I'm going to bring this comment up. RL77 heard that Barisic is keen to be Abada's new agent. Just had to, because it was like making me have a bit of a chuckle there. So yeah, what we'll do is we'll crack on to the last 2 topics we want to talk about quickly so we can give a fair amount of time to the Glasgow Derby preview. So what we'll do is I'm going to switch the order of these around, actually, because it ties in better to the derby. So next topic is apparently Celtic will travel to Japan for the pre-season friendly in the summer, according to reports. It's claimed that Ange Postecoglou will take the Hoops team back to the country where he previously managed to take on his old side, Yokohama F. Marinos, who will also play against Man City. It's not clear at this stage if it will be a tournament format with Celtic also playing Pep Guardiola's men. So what are your thoughts on that, Liam, being in Japan? Is there any talk of it happening over there? Are you going to try and get to the games if they are happening over there?
Well, funnily enough, I have actually seen Marinos play Man City back in 2019 when Ange was the manager. Because it's only It's about a 2.5 hour trip from where I am. You basically a couple of trains, then the Shinkansen bullet train, and then another train out to Yokohama. So it's it's definitely doable. It's a great wee day trip. Depending on the timing, the wife and I might make a weekend of it and stay in Tokyo for a couple of days. I'm really looking forward to it, and I hope there are multiple games, because if we are playing Man City as well, hopefully it will be in a sort of a 3 or 4 day window, so we could like go down to Tokyo, stay there for 3 or 4 days, and take in both games. I'm hoping, and yeah, I'm really excited about it. I really But the thing is, though, I've heard conflicting rumours, because there was this report today, which I think it was Shane shared with us in our group chat. But a couple of weeks ago, there was another report saying that it was going to be a 4-team tournament involving Celtic, Bayern, PSG, and I think Barcelona.
Man City.
Sorry, Man City, yeah. But to be honest, this one now makes more sense, because when you think about it, Man City and Yokohama are both part of the City group, sort of interlinked network.
And we're de facto City group, let's be honest.
Aye. We have a relationship with the City group, so it figures that when they are having any sort of event in Japan, they would want to invite, the club they have a relationship with that has the most Japanese players outside of Japan, which is us. So, yeah.
Oh, no, the comments didn't blow up with my de facto comment. I was waiting for it to just go off.
Give it time.
Yeah. No, it's for me, I'm looking at it going, yeah, it makes sense to have Celtic over there with the amount of Japanese players we've got. You've got the City group tie in with Marinos, with Man City going. Makes sense. So I have no complaints about that at all. Now, the other question off the back of that, Liam, is will us being as part of this tour, will this help build Celtic's brand in Japan, in your opinion?
I would cautiously say yes, but there's one important caveat.
It's hopeless.
No, I mean, right, but that goes without saying. But what I would say is to Celtic, please, please, please keep the ticket prices reasonable. Please remember that fans in Japan are accustomed to paying no more than about 5,000 or 6,000 yen for a ticket to a football match, which is about, I think about maybe 35 Australian dollars, or about 30 quid in British money. That's the maximum that you could fairly charge, because if you're going to create a fan base for Celtic over here, you want kids and families to go. If you make it, if you do what Barcelona and Chelsea did a couple of years ago, the shower robbing scum that they are, and make it 20,000 yen a ticket, you are immediately telling kids, no, you can't go. And I saw that firsthand. There were students at some of the schools I work at who you always see them cutting about in their Barcelona shirts, whatever. Barcelona, for some reason, have a big following here. Don't know why. But, they were telling me, they were really excited to go to the Barcelona-Chelsea game a couple of years ago. And then they just went quiet about it. And I found out the truth was that it was just too expensive. You're talking about families with 3 or 4 kids who cannot afford to pay upwards of £100 a ticket. It's ridiculous. And to their credit, Man City did not do that when they played Yokohama before. Those tickets were, I think the cheapest ticket was 4,000, and the most expensive ticket was about 8,000 or 9,000. And I think I paid about 5,000 for my ticket, because I was kind of like top tier, but not like really far away. I get a really good view of the pitch, actually. So I hope that, because it's the same teams and probably the same organising committee, I hope they keep the prices about the same. Because Celtic need to look at the long term here. The biggest problem with our board is short-termism. You think back to like case in point, the COVID season, right? There was an opportunity there to really build Celtic's online broadcasting platform, to turn Celtic TV into a proper service and keep it as a proper service. But they didn't. They just ran the same crap they've been running for years, and they charged fans in Scotland about 4 or 5 times what they charge us for the same service. And it's ridiculous. And again, it's because it's a captive audience. They know people are going to pay whatever they have to watch Celtic games. And it's just not fair. It needs to be sorted out. And the problem with Japan is that, yes, you have people here who are ready to become Celtic fans, right? Celtic have a lot of, should I say, sympathy is the wrong word. There's a lot of enthusiasm around Celtic in Japan. But these people are not necessarily Celtic supporters. They might support Liverpool, Man City, Chelsea, because those are the teams they see on the telly every weekend, right? If Celtic want to establish a proper brand here, they really need to make the brand accessible, make the brand affordable, and present it in a professional manner. Because nobody can tell me that Celtic TV is a professional setup, because it isn't. It's a cowboy thing at the moment. It really is. And we need to sort that out. We can't be an international club if we continue to behave like a first division team when it comes to marketing.
100%, mate, 100%. So we've got some comments here. So Andrew Collier saying, totally agree, Liam, it's got to be affordable. And then he's followed up saying there's a cost of living crisis going on.
Yeah.
And then I got this one for the Japan trip: organise a bus and have loads of shirts available.
Oh dear! If you know, you know. I'll leave it at that.
And then another comment here is, Liam, how would the police react to our fun fans?
They'd be fine. You know, the police here take a very hands-off approach. As long as you're not being physically aggressive towards anybody, sing whatever song you like, have a beer in the street if you want, no problem. Just don't go picking fights with anybody. That's the thing. You know, and Celtic fans traditionally don't do that, so they'll be fine. You know, it is a weird thing. Literally, I was walking down the street the other day, coming home from school, and I walked past this. Stopped at the traffic lights to cross the road. And this businessman next to me just whips out a beer and just opens it and starts drinking it in the middle of the street.
Good on him.
And great, right? But the thing is, if I did that in Glasgow, I'd get the jail. You can't do that. I don't know how it is in Australia, but public drinking is just not a thing in Scotland anymore.
There's workarounds over here, Liam. It involves a brown paper bag.
Ah, right. I see.
If it can't be seen as what it actually is, then they can't do anything about it. They can just tell you to tip it out and then put it in the bin. But yeah, that's the workarounds over here.
Yeah. Meanwhile, over here, you know, this weekend we are all going to get together and get a big carry out and sit under the cherry blossom trees for this, what we call it hanami, which is basically getting pished and looking at the flowers.
Brilliant. We'll bring up some comments here. Where are we? Here you go. Morning, Paddy. Thanks for tuning in.
Morning, Paddy.
John, TDU needs to release a pot noodle flavour for the Japan tour. And then anyone, yep, or have a goon box. Yep, 100%. Get on the goon bags. So we'll get into the next topic. This is going to be short and sweet, but it's going to tie into the Derby bingo. Brendan Rodgers sacked by Leicester. I can sum up my thoughts on this in 5 words. Suck shit, you rat bastard. That is all. Now,
well, I was going to say just play that Simpsons soundbite that we know so well, you know.
Yeah. Nah, at the end of the day, like, he left, he did his thing. We got Ange now. We're in a better spot, so whatever. But this is the funny thing. Within about 3.2 seconds, I think it would have been, of that being announced.
Yeah.
Scottish mainstream media links Ange to the Leicester job. Stocks down a distraction tactics by the media in Glasgow Derby week, as we discussed earlier in the pod. That brings us into the preview of the Derby against Sevco. So what we'll do is we will bring up Glasgow Derby bingo card onto the screen now, and we'll go through it. So, the 9 main things that Colin said on Axon were: a Sevco player says it's their chance to shine in the match. Celtic player linked with a move abroad. Sevco manager is labelled as the best they've ever had. Ange is linked with a dream job away from Celtic. Pundits predict that the gap between the two teams is closer than ever. There's an injury crisis at Lennoxtown. Sevco receive an injury boost. An agent claims that a top Celtic player is unsettled at the club. And a current Sevco player is compared to a world-famous star player. So those are your things. Now, I can go through the top row and go, a Sevco player says it's their chance to shine. Yep, that's been reported. A Celtic player has been linked with a move abroad this week. Tick. Sevco manager labelled the best they've ever had. Haven't seen that one yet, so that's not a bingo there. Ange linked with dream job. The Leicester thing this week, so that takes that. Injury cross at Lennoxtown. Oh yeah, because Greg Taylor got a dead leg or whatever on the weekend, and with Moy and Hatate being out on the weekend, that's happening. So the only one in the middle row there, the pundit predicts that the gap between them is close to ever. I haven't seen that one yet. And then you've got Sevco receive an injury boost. Apparently they've got someone back from injury. Top agent claims that a top player is unsettled at the club. We'll just lean that into the Lil Labada comments. A current Sevco player is compared to a world-famous star player. Unless someone's on the beers beat pretending that they're Gaza. I don't know who that. I haven't heard that one this week either. But, yeah, you guarantee you get those things every derby week.
Well, I tell you the funny thing about that, right? As I said earlier, with my internet situation, right, I wasn't able to watch the Axon show live on Monday. So on Tuesday, I was sitting at my desk at lunchtime having my pot noodle and watching the show, and Colin's bingo card came up, and he kind of, I made a wee note of what he was saying, and sure enough, 20 minutes later, I quickly scanned through the various Scottish newspapers, websites, BBC, etc. I had ticked off 7 of the 9 in 20 minutes. So I think that just kind of says it all, doesn't it, really?
Pretty much.
Yeah. And funnily enough, one of them which I didn't find was the injury crisis at Lennoxtown, which you have since said, well, Greg Taylor. So there you go. There's another one. There's 8.
Here's the one I hadn't seen. Patrick McLaughlin. Bills compared to Arsene Wenger yesterday. I hadn't seen that one. So
Yep. That was the one that I picked up on. There was one. There was 2. There was one saying that he should be the next England manager, and there was another one saying that Arsene Wenger. He was compared to Arsene Wenger. I did read, and this was a daft one. It's one of them. I had to go back and, is this a wind up? But somebody wrote something comparing John Lundstrom to, I think it was Patrick Vieira. It was like, what, isn't they both going to be unemployed next month? You know, I don't know what's the deal with that one.
Oh, brilliant.
Oh,
and then we've got, talking about Lundstrom, there you go, Patrick McLaughlin. Lundstrom and Morelos will get sent off on Saturday. Where's Morelos getting sent off from? The the line at KFC or what?
As I said before, no coincidence that Glasgow's biggest bakery filed for bankruptcy in the same week he put in a transfer request.
So I'm going to bring up another comment here because there's a couple of them about it. So the Hunts chairman quits after another share issue, and the media portrayed as a positive news. That's another one that's happened this week. Sevco losing the plot.
Yeah.
And then Eamon's question, who bought the raffle tickets this week? They converted loan debt into shares. So the people had already paid for those tickets.
Well, it's a shame because my lovely wife got me this little baby Yoda mug as a late Christmas present, and she told me, only cost a £5. I could have bought about 1,000 shares in Rangers for that,
Yep. And we've got
Although personally, the mug has probably got more value, so there you go.
So Patrick McLaughlin, they're ready to explode. Their behaviour in the last 2 week minor games points towards it happening. Mr. Freeland. They're not skin again, are they? Was hoping for some kind of challenge next season. And
You
then,
never know. Hearts or Aberdeen might step up.
yep. So what we'll do is we'll get into the actual game. That was a little bit of stirring up the masses. I gotta love it. But so expected starting lineup for us. I'll go first. It'll be Hart in goals, Johnson and Taylor if he's fit. If he's not fit, it'll be Bernabei. That's the main question mark position for us left back. Who will be in there? Starfelt, Carter Vickers are your centre backs. Midfield, if Moy is back or Hatate is back, then it will be one of those two. You'd have Kelmac. And then the other question is, do we keep O'Reilly in there or do we play both Hatate and Moy? And then up front will be Kyogo, Maeda, and it will be question is, do we go with Abada to get at Barisic or do we put Jota out there? If we have Abada, then Jota goes to the left. Or do we go with Maeda for the work rate and to constantly have him pressing Tavernier and wear him out? And then have Jota on the right with, Abada if he's fit. I'm not sure if he'll be back yet either. But, that sort of situation. So it'll take care of itself, all things considered. But what's your lineup, Liam?
Yeah, back line, I pretty much agree with you, with the possible caveat that if Taylor isn't fit, the obvious option is Bernabei, and as I said, I would have no problems with that. But if all of our midfielders are fit, there is the option of playing Rio Hatate there to get him into the team. Don't know if we want to try it in a derby game, but he did do it for about half a season at Kawasaki and did pretty well. Ended up getting Player of the Year, so there is that option. But no, realistically, I think it'll be Taylor. Taylor will be all right. So that's your back four sorted.
Liam, I have PTSD from playing midfielders at left back, so I think it was the Ferencvaros game, wasn't it?
Oh, let's not. No,
let's not do that. PTSD. No. I don't want to be sitting there like in a straight jacket, rocking back and forward, just having a freak out when I see the team list come out. So let's not do that.
Speaking of PTSD, do you know how many Vietnam vets it takes to change a light bulb?
I'm not going to answer that.
No, you don't, because you were there, man. Anyway, sorry, I got distracted. Midfield, Hatate, if he's fit, hopefully. Moy, McGregor. But if either Moy or Hatate don't make it, I would put Iwata in ahead of O'Reilly, because I think you need someone a bit more physical because you're going to have the likes of Lundstrom and Jack trying to get at us physically, and I think Iwata is perhaps slightly better positioned to stand up to that than either O'Reilly or Hatate. If Hatate's fit, he starts. If he's not, I think it's in order of preference. It's Hatate, Moy, Iwata, and then O'Reilly. Whereas most people probably have O'Reilly ahead of Iwata, but I would switch those two.
The only thing I would do, Liam, is because if we're going to play Iwata and Kelmac together against them, we'd probably need to switch the midfield to a double pivot so that Kelmac and Iwata are more similar together, rather than promoting Kelmac that step further forward into the 8. If we were to put him there in the 8, then that's going to take away a little bit from what his strengths are. Like, that's what I found on the weekend watching against Ross County, when we didn't get the same impact out of him when he was playing a bit more advanced alongside Iwata. But if we played them both a bit more deeper, and then you have like an O'Reilly in front of them who can play in that old Tom Rogic role sort of thing more central, then maybe that could work. But then that's why Ange's on the big bucks and we're just idiots on a podcast on the other side of the world.
Yeah, well, what I would say to that is that, as I mentioned, I think that Rangers may well go with the midfield pairing of Jack and Lundstrom to try and bully us physically. And I think that Iwata and Kalmack alongside each other, like you said, playing that wee bit deeper, would be the perfect counterbalance to that, because they can match those two physically, but they're also both much better players than they are. So
both got good ball playing ability from the deep with their range of passing. That'll be something crazy. And if we wanted to go for the Lenny twist pre-game, maybe Starfeld out for another ball-playing centre-back with Kobayashi. That's something that you'd get in the old Neil Lennon days, but I don't expect to see that.
No, I think Ange is very much, he does rotate the squad, but I think he knows that for the way he sets up at the moment, Starfelt and Carter Vickers are the way to go if they're both fully fit. Again, though, if either of them had a problem, I would not be too worried about playing Kobayashi in there because he's perfectly capable. But our strongest centre-back pairing at the moment is Starfelt and Carter Vickers. But up front, I would say, obviously, Kyogo, Maeda on the left, Jota on the right. And what you can do then is you can set it up so that in the first half, you have Maeda pulling their defence one way with his pace and Jota coming at them with his skills and his trickery. And then in the second half, you can invert it because you can bring on Abada to give you pace down the right, and then you bring Haksabanovic on to give you trickery down the left. So I think you can pull them always by doing that. And hopefully by the time that Ange usually makes his subs, about 60 minutes, we're already 3 or 4 goals up. But just in case.
I just love that we got so many options. It's great. But you're talking about Maeda there. So Zoroa Singh saying Maeda will destroy Tavernier. Kelmack needs to start in the 6. And then Andrew Galea Kyogo needs to be stronger than he was last weekend. The difference is Ross County were out there to bully him and play physical with him. The centre-backs at Sevco, they're not really those sort of bullying centre-backs. They want to play with the ball. Goldson's too busy trying to be a second goalkeeper using his hands. So, I just don't know what the what the question is here. I think he'll bounce back. And then RL77 here is I'd start O to provide the jabs, Kyogo to come on for the uppercut. Nice boxing analogy with everything. And then Michael Ross is Kyogo will start, but I have a feeling O will score off the bench.
Yeah,
in the comments,
that's more what I would go for. Yeah.
Let us know your score predictions. Who's gonna score the goals and what your score prediction will be. Because we're getting to that a bit later on in this little review part here, so we'll get to that. Now, are there any predictions? Any certain matchups to watch out for? If Abada was fit, it's always Abada and Barisic and Maeda onto Tavernier because they like to bomb forward. But if you've got guys pressing them, they can't really do that. I think the key thing is going to be in the middle of the park. Who's going to get that midfield dominance? That's the thing for me. What do you think, Liam?
Yeah, and that was why, as I said before, I leaned towards possibly pitching Iwata in there because I think there's going to be a physical battle in that midfield, and I think that we win the game comfortably. Even if we don't win that, we may well still win the game, but I think that would allow us to really control the pace of the game. And the only times that we have looked vulnerable against Sevco recently has been when we've allowed them to dictate the pace of the game. And, for example, in the New Year game, once Greg Taylor went off, it was largely them dictating the pace, which is why they went a goal ahead before we got the equaliser. So we need to make sure that does not happen. And I think winning the midfield battle, as you say, is crucial to that. But also, I think that Maeda's going to have a big role to play because, he scored against them last time. The last time we played them in the league. And he is their defence, like you say, they try to be ball-playing centre-backs, but they don't quite have the skill to pull it off. So I think someone like
centre-backs, Liam, they're too busy with putting them in their hands.
Aye, well, there is that as well. But the point being that Maeda is one of those that, as my dad described him, he must be an absolute nuisance to play against because he's always right on your shoulder. And I think he could definitely force. I mean, he did it in the New Year game. He forced an error out of one of their players to get the opening goal, and I definitely think he could do that again. So, not so much an individual battle as just Maeda against the entire Rangers defence is going to be something to watch out for.
Okay, we've got some comments here. So, Zorawar Singh, no tinkering if everyone's fit. League's over if we bury them. Taylor versus Sakala is a matchup for them to watch. Paddy Lavery, Joe Hart hat-trick. And Andrew Galea, Awada, Moy, and McGregor will be a strong midfield. That's what I was saying. Like, if we go with the double pivot with McGregor and Awada next to each other and you have Moy playing in that 10, that could work.
Yeah.
Michael Ross here is saying, sorry, Andrew Galea is saying they'll be playing long balls to try and turn Starfelt around. Mr. Freeland, Goldson's the best goalkeeper they have. And then we've got so this ties into the next one. So the referee appointments. Kevin Clancy will take charge of this weekend's derby. John Beaton will be the fourth official. Nick Walsh is the VAR ref. So in what minute will Sevco get their obligatory penalty? Eamon's put that in the comments here as well. Thoughts on Rangers penalty? When will it be? And then Michael Ross is, if Sevco get their weekly penalty, wouldn't it be a great time for Hart to finally save one? Absolutely, mate. I'll probably do a cartwheel in the CSC. I'm mad if that happens. Please, no recording. If I try that, my wife will kill me.
Yeah, I would predict there'd be something quite nice and ironic if we were 7-0 up and they got the penalty on 67 minutes and then it finished 7-1. That'd be quite nice.
So we got 62-minute for the penalty from Alan Woods. Mr. Freeland is 33-minute penalty. So there's a whole bunch of stuff there. We'll we're all expecting them to get a penalty. So we mentioned earlier as well, Liam, like where the game will be won in the middle of the park, I reckon. I think it's all about basically keep winning that midfield battle. I think we pretty much have summed that up, haven't we? And Liam has frozen, so I will continue. So we'll go through some of the comments here from early on. Asked where you'll be all watching the games. So Eamon is Rockwell Bar and Grill in Hobart. That's at the Tassie CSC. Mickey Monahan is North Stand Upper. Alan Woods is either in my flat or in the market in Pub in Air. RL77. For Saturday, does anyone want to start a Byron Bay CSC? If you're in that area, let them know. Liam's just dropped out, so we'll just change to this screen. So, Eamon's also shout out to the Carluke Shamrock CSC at Marshall's house. Andrew Galea is I'll be watching the game on my phone as I'll be away fishing. Living the dream, mate. You'll be living the dream. Happy days. So what I want to do is I will bring up I wanted to give a shout out to all the Australian CSCs and what they're doing for the derby on the weekend. So the Adelaide CSC is having an event on at John Doe's local bar, Gilbert Street, Adelaide. So that's where the guys in Adelaide will be. The guys down in Mornington at the Social Celts, they'll be at Mr. Paul's in Mornington. I'll have Richie Mackay playing some tunes from 7:30. Everyone will be there from 6:30 onwards. The Mandurah Celtic Supporters Club over in Western Australia are celebrating their 10th anniversary with a boat cruise earlier in the day and then the game. So they'll be in at the Oceanic Bar and Grill in Mandurah. Brisbane Celtic Supporters Club will be at the Lord Alfred Tavern in Petrie Terrace. So they'll all be in there. The Perth Celtic Supporters Club will all be in Johnny Fox's, watching the game live music from Fieldsy from 6 p.m. onwards. The Tasmanian CSC that Eamon's mentioned, they'll be at Rockwell Bar and Grill. Kickoff's 9:30, dinner organised for 7:30 onwards. Gold Coast CSC will be at the Chevron Tavern in Thomas Drive, Surfers Paradise. The Sydney CSC will be in their usual location at Scruffy Murphy's. So that's where they will all be watching the game. So if you're in Sydney, get along there to watch it. Western Sydney Celtic Supporters Club, I'm assuming they're out at the Penrith Gales Sporting and Cultural Association as usual. And then in Melbourne, if you're looking for a place, I'm going to be in at the Melbourne number 1 Celtic Supporters Club at the Turf Bar in Queen Street, Melbourne. So get in there. Game's going to be shown in there. So that's where you'll be able to find me for the game as well. So yeah, just get in, watch the games if you at your local CSCs, and yeah, Liam, where you going to be watching the game?
Well, hopefully, hopefully I'll be watching it. My internet doesn't go on the blink again. I'll be watching it in the house probably with my missus, and yeah, pretty much where I'm sitting right now, right in front of the telly, beer and pot noodle in hand, ready for a good zombie scalping.
Liam loves his pot noodle. And to answer this question from Andy Glare, are you confident we'll turn up in form this weekend, Jared? So this ties into what I said early on about give us your score predictions and who's gonna win. What are we gonna win? Who's gonna be our first goal scorer? So for me, I'm looking at it going, we're due. We're due a Kyogo absolute to scalp them. So I'm saying we're gonna do them 4-1 because they'll get their penalty, and Kyogo will have a hat trick, and Haksabanovic will score one from the car park. Basically, that's going to make Bernabei's goal last weekend look like it was, wasn't that great. But what's your thoughts, Liam?
I'm going to say 5-0 because, as we talked about before, I think Joe Hart will save the penalty.
There's someone agreeing with you. 5-0 from Patrick McLaughlin.
Yeah.
3-0 from RL77. Feed the Bear. 3-1. Eamon saying when we win, it's all over. 3-0. There was also a comment. Liam popped 50 yen in the box. There's another comment. Liam was away for Osaki.
I wish. Christ.
Michael Ross was early goal from us and Noel Crumble, 4-0. Zorawar Singh, 3-1 made, a double. So there's a fair bit of confidence there. I think the key thing for us is to keep the head and just focus on getting the job done. Other than that, you got anything else you want to touch on for the derby, Liam?
I was just going to say that whilst I really do hope we go out and give them a good scalping, just remember, everybody, that a draw is perfectly fine for us. I think that if we can come out of the game still 9 points ahead, that's perfectly okay with me. But 12 points clear with, we are then within 3 or 4 games of winning the league, which is exactly where we want to be at this time of year. So, yeah, a draw would be okay, but let's just go out and demolish them and just put this myth that they are anywhere near our level to bed once and for all.
Last 3 comments I'll bring up here. Andrew Glare, where to convert early chances. Think we will, 4-0. Paddy Lavery, no chance. Big Joe will save the penalty. Alan Woods, 3-1. Kyogo, Jota, and O laid on. So we'll leave it there. Everyone, enjoy yourselves on the weekend. Make Easter Saturday, a magical night. Get out there, support the club, support your team, and have a great Easter. For me, I'll be down at the Melbourne number 1 CSC at the Turf Bar. If you want to come down, watch the game with us. If you're in Melbourne, if you're anywhere else, we rattled off where they all are. I'm sure you'll be able to get the game at one of them too. But yeah, Liam, you got a final thought?
Yeah, not football related, but just to be a wee bit serious for a second. Scotland lost a great sporting legend at the weekend, Ken Buchanan, our greatest ever boxer. But I was fortunate enough to also call Ken a friend. Had many a good night in his company back in the early 2000s when him and my dad and I used to go and watch the boxing club together in Glasgow. And a very warm, friendly, extremely humble man. The most humble sporting legend I think you'd ever hope to meet. A lovely guy who will be very sadly missed. So God bless Ken, and thank you.
My final thought ties into a comment I'm going to bring up from Feed the Bear, which was morning all, hail, hail, first time viewer subbed. And then never knew that this podcast had lives, mate. So all my final thought was going to be, thanks for tuning in, Feed the Bear. Everyone, please, if you want to help us grow Celtic Down Under, you like what we do, subscribe. Make sure you're telling everyone that we go live, where they can find us, and just tell a mate, tell a friend about the pod. Just share it around, and we just grow this channel together. Really appreciate each and every one of you. Thanks for tuning in, and have a good Easter. And Andrew Galea, if you do come in on Saturday, come say g'day. I've just seen you in the comments there. Hail, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great weekend.
Yeah, well.